Hey there, welcome to episode 66 of the Quaggling Sand audio program. I'm your host, Dan Hugo. It is 11:11 a.m. on February 12, 2025. It is my mother's birthday today. Happy birthday, Mom. I'm not saying she listens to this stuff, but if she happens to be, there you go. 21 for the 37th time or something like that. Quaggling Sand is a vanity audio essay project, I suppose you could say. Stories, tales, adventures, misadventures. If you take something from the stories told, great. Almost certainly no guests ever, but who knows? That could change. Quaggling Sand is a term I coined when I was very young, before I knew what public speaking was, which is the title of today's episode. Quaggling Sand is something you may already be familiar with, except you call it pins and needles, or something similar. It's the sensation you get when you have been sitting on a limb or circulation has otherwise been blocked to some part of your body. As circulation returns, there's that feeling which you may begin calling quaggling sand. The purpose of the show, like I said, tell stories, and if you take something from it, great. They don't always have a moral or a lesson of some sort or an aha moment. This one might be one of those. It depends. Maybe you don't like public speaking. Most people don't. So if this is helpful to you, wonderful. On that note, hopefully wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes, which I will read to you as the summary, and some links. There are 2 shameless self-promotion links as usual, and 2 different links about glossophobia. So let's begin. The summary of today's episode. Getting up in front of a crowd is often alleged to be in the top 3 activities that scare people the most. Snakes and spiders are often in that part of the list as well. Fire and falling from a height, things like this. Apparently not as frightening as spiders, snakes, and talking to other people. And there was a time, that's not in the summary, I've ad-libbed, and there was a time when I would have agreed. But then I realized something important, which is why we're talking about this today. The links section, the usual 2, buymeacoffee.com/danhugo and ko-fi.com. That's ko-fi.com/danhugo. Don't forget, buymeacoffee.com/danhugo has posts. And it turns out there's a link at the very top of the page when you visit the website. Posts, P-O-S-T-S. I have a link at the top of my profile content, which also contains some details about me, links to my various audio programs, different GitHub projects, some of my favorite coffee beans, and so on. While you are not obligated in any way to spend money at either of these websites, they are both frequently used by content creators, open source software developers, anyone working on projects with an audience or a user base to reach out, stay in touch. And if people want to support that, so be it. Any funds that come in through either of these 2 shameless self-promotion websites go towards coffee or coffee accessories. I do publish a Buy Me an Update, 5-minute or less micro episode. Is that what I call it? Micro episode? Microcast, I think. It's there's a checkbox with a keyword that I added. Buy Me an Update exclusively on buymeacoffee.com. It's what did you miss from the last week's episodes of the various audio programs and what's coming up for the week. I publish it on Mondays, early in the day if possible, morning ideally. But the morning where I am might be different from the morning where you are. But yeah, look for that on Mondays. I think we're episode 12 went up this week. And ko-fi.com does not offer similar functionality, so I usually post some text message updates there. I got to up my game on both of these just in general so that people like yourself can see what's up, regardless of websites or other such things. Who knows if Spotify will someday boot me for whatever reason. They've done it before for no reason, so anything is possible. So a way to engage so you can always find me. You'll always find those links. Definitely at buymeacoffee.com/danhugo. Glossophobia. Do note it's gloss, not glass. I was saying glossophobia to myself earlier. Glossophobia, Glossophobia, Phobia. I've linked to the Wikipedia article about it. And as you know, if you're going to search for information, if you seek knowledge and understanding, you may begin your journey at Wikipedia, but don't end it there. It's a good place for references. It's a good starting point. I usually link to Wikipedia with that in mind. Glossophobia, it does have that extra O. If you read the next link at mentalhealth.com, no, you're not going crazy. They have misspelled it several times, at least twice that I noted before I went and checked, because they have both spellings on that article. Glossophobia and glossphobia, but it's glossophobia. So the interesting read, actually, if you do suffer from a fear of public speaking, and note that the title of the article is What We Fear More Than Death. And interestingly, if you do read the article, towards the end, they say, now, in reality, if you were to ask someone, would you rather speak in front of people right now or die? I'm paraphrasing, but it's essentially saying that 100% of people would rather speak in front of people. So it's not truly as dire as people express when they take surveys. Like, what's the scariest thing, dying or speaking in front of a group of people about personal phobias? So keep that in mind. But anyway, these two resources, if you do suffer from this malady, I can't say that I was ever like deathly afraid, but I never really enjoyed it. And I'm not extroverted. I've done an episode about introversion versus extroversion and where I am on that. Typically misused spectrum of sorts, but yeah, it was really more, well, I'll get into that, but I don't think I was ever deathly afraid, but I've certainly had my bouts with anxiety. But you know what? It's actually not so difficult to get over it. So the early years, anyone who has ever been a kid, I know that some of you, may recall being in a classroom with your peers, doing your thing. Now, sometimes there were very shy kids. They had real difficulty being in a room with other young people or the teachers or who knows. I am not qualified at all to suggest that what that might have been or what that might be today. Who knows? I'm not a child psychologist. I'm absolutely not qualified to address that. However, from my own personal experience, I'm going to say that mostly, in the middle of the bell curve, most of the peers are fine. They talk to each other. They're all same age. They're all in the same situation. They're in a room facing a chalkboard, or today probably a whiteboard or dry erase board. Maybe at least one teacher. We're all kind of in the same boat. So I think as young people, we don't really have to think about it too much. We're interacting with our peers. We're in a classroom setting. We see the same people every day. We might even be seeing the same people year over year. We're all growing up together. We are comfortable. We're good. We could play at recess. We could speak with our classmates at lunchtime in the cafeteria, if there is one, or before and after school, maybe during extracurricular activities, field trips. You have developed with these people, and probably something happens similar things happen with coworkers, especially people who are doing military service together, especially in dangerous situations, people who are in law enforcement or public safety. So whenever you're doing activities, you're performing together, you're working together, you depend on each other, you're in a similar situation. I think that sort of becomes a comfort zone. But again, not a psychologist, I'm just up here talking. We could certainly ask questions. We could answer questions, or try to, when we were kids, right? All because we were comfortable in our surroundings. The teacher might ask, does anybody know what 7 times 8 is? And somebody might say, I don't know. And then nobody raises their hand. The teacher calls on someone. You make a guess, maybe, if you don't know, and somebody else will say like, no, that was wrong. Or they'll laugh because you got it so wrong because everybody in the room knows except for you. But, there are movies or TV shows where somebody might be crushed by this, but I don't know how often that really happens. Hey, you got it wrong. 55? No, 56. That's not going to be a life-changing, hopefully it's not a life-changing circumstance, but probably some negative reinforcement will be a part of the learning process. Like, don't touch that barbecue nor that exhaust pipe on that motorcycle. And if it takes 2 or 3 times, that's okay. You learn eventually. If people are doing such silliness 10, 15, 20, 30, 50 times, that's a different problem. So yeah, learning your multiplication tables, yeah, you get one wrong now and then, but eventually, and you're in your comfort zone. So I think that's part of learning is you go, why did I not remember it's 56? Indeed. So we're in the social settings. We're not nervous or frightened, even though we're subconsciously judging each other. That's part of the evolutionary biology of the world, that we're always sort of competing a little bit, but we're learning from that. That's the youth, the play fighting type stuff. So we're learning from all of this. So how about a distraction? Now, at some point, we might need to like get up in front of a different group of people. I've written in front of different people, but a different group, and make a presentation or perform in some other way. Then what? So now we may or may not be in our comfort zone, which I'll get to in a moment. So I played the viola when I was younger. I don't recall being overly nervous playing with my fellow orchestra students when we did so for a school recital. I was never performing in a professional orchestra. I never really got that good at all. But it was interesting to learn a musical instrument, to learn that it wasn't really for me, that it was interesting and even fun, but not something that I wanted to do. So I'm going to guess that there would have been a different story if I were to be pursuing solo performances, if I were playing the first violin or something like this, or if I was playing a more rock-oriented instrument, a guitar, drums, or something. Performing in a group, the audience was out there somewhere while the team was up here on stage. So we all knew each other. We're in our peer group. We're comfortable. We've been practicing together. We know we aren't that great. So here we are. And then, of course, if your parents are out in the audience, they're going to tell you did great either way, even though they probably couldn't pick you out of all the violas or violins or cellos. But hey, it sounded great. I think so long as there were others in our peer group, especially collaborating in this performance, whatever it was. So all of the orchestra students knew each other. We all practiced every day and so on. It was more like performance for the peers. We were performing for each other, not the audience. We knew each other, so it didn't much matter who else was out there. We may as well have been in a classroom or other familiar setting, just like any other time. So comfort zone, a factor, I think. I think it's difficult to not agree with that. If you don't agree with that, keep it to yourself. So let us say that if we're in our comfort zone, so to speak, then we can do what we want, say what we want. And even if we are being judged, it is by others within our comfort zone. So maybe you're out with your friends and you try to make a joke, or you try to juggle and it doesn't work, or whatever it is, and you're horsing around, as they say, or you're out having a good time, or you're in your coworker space, or whatever you're doing, you're surrounded by your peer group, you are in your comfort zone. It's all good. Even if somebody outside of your comfort zone decides, yeah, these smart displays, they should be outside of my comfort zone. So, but even if somebody does pretend to judge you outside of your group, if you're out with a group or if you're hanging out with a group of people, it's them. It's you are surrounded by your peers. You're in your comfort zone. They're essentially protecting you. So if somebody says, that was dumb. Yeah, whatever. Go pound sand, buddy. Now we sometimes find ourselves not in our comfort zone, right? So maybe we're alone, or maybe we're placed on the spot, so to speak, and you have to kind of get it together. You don't understand the circumstance. You don't know the people you're talking to. You don't have your peer group around you. You don't have like an anchor, a rock to cling to. So now we might get nervous, even if this isn't happening yet, but you're about to go on stage, or you're about to have to get up in front of some, maybe you have to do a press conference or some crazy thing or some bad thing has happened and you got to get up in front of people and talk. And of course, in really bad circumstances, that's understandably nerve-wracking. But generally speaking, if our audience is going to be our jury, they're going to be judging us. That's tough. So, now we might get nervous, even if this isn't happening immediately. It's a circumstance that, I don't want to talk in front of people. I don't know. I'm remembering that one time and I'm getting nervous and I don't want to screw up, or I don't want to forget what I'm supposed to say, or maybe I lose my voice, which I sometimes do during my audio programs, or doing the thing, whatever the thing is. I can't do the thing today. I can't juggle. I can't play the viola, whatever it is. So especially if you're not prepared or you're unexpectedly put on the spot, everybody will be looking at me. And that's when we get our performance anxiety. Sorry, I'm fixing a couple of typos here. So there's something about getting in one's head, as the expression goes, get out of your head. And once we are in our own head, we are creating a scenario that is likely worse than what is really happening. If I get on stage and I fall off the stage, or if I get up in front of people and they start laughing at me, but they're not supposed to. I mean, if you're doing open mic comedy, then maybe you do want them to laugh at you. But what if we screw up though? That's the trouble. So once you're in your head, then it almost feeds back on itself. Once you're thinking about it too much, overthinking it, then that might lead to you forgetting. But what if I forget? Wait, now I can't remember. So you almost undo your best effort. If you flip through the article on glossophobia on the mental health website, and then you remember that they misspelled it glossophobia, it refers to a potential bad experience early in life, embarrassment or anxiety or some other negative experience that has left a negative imprint. Could be multiple times. It's waiting for us in our heads if we choose to hang out there for too long or too much. Oh, what about that time? Well, that's not this time. But, and then everything unravels from there. So the worst, my own worst experiences, learning experiences, all of them. I'm not quite sure which is worse, so I'll describe 3 scenarios from my own public speaking past that were truly awful. They were educational, but awful. So when I was in college for my first clinic project is basically small student-run. I think of them as like little consulting projects. So the professors were looking in, but they were not doing any work. They were purely advisory, so it's all collaboration with our peers. So we're in a peer group. I happened to be on a team of 4. I was the 4th, but I was a junior, so I was literally the junior member. 2 seniors and 1 fifth-year master's candidate, so it was people that are more experienced than me. I, as the junior member, was up to make the first presentation to our engineering clinic class, so it's all of our class, same juniors and seniors that are taking the clinic class. So all peers plus some representatives from the sponsoring company, so there were probably 3 companies presenting that day, our project for our sponsoring company, and then 2 others. So mostly peers, a couple of people that were, they're more experienced. They know more. They're here to judge. For some reason, I was absolutely crushed with anxiety. I was uncertain what I was speaking about. I didn't really know the topic so well. I really had no idea. And part of that problem was I had not yet taken the academic classes that had to do with the project that we were working on. We were working on a software programmable radio, basically software-defined radio of sorts, digital receiver. So I didn't know the science. I didn't know the comlink, the link equations, what is a phasor, what is a rotating phasor to capture signals and shift them down, and FIR filters, finite impulse response. So I didn't know any of this yet. So I'm up there talking about things I don't even know what I'm saying. So I was nervous. I was uncertain what I was speaking about. I really had no idea why I was there. What am I doing up here? Why am I talking about this? What is this? Who are these people? By the way, the following year, I made a different presentation about a different project. I was completely familiar with how the project worked. I was able to handle a slide swap issue where I was speaking and the audience is looking at me funny and somebody points and I look back at the slide and I'm like, oh, that's the wrong one. So we flipped it. I I picked back up where I was supposed to be, then covered the other one. And so it was fine. A little snafu, roll with it. Because I knew the material, because I was comfortable, because I was speaking to my peer group, a little snafu like that, not a problem. So you just work it in, just make a joke. Like, I think I said something like, well, that's not what we're talking about. Just something simple. It doesn't have to be too complicated. It probably helps the audience if you don't get flustered. They're like, oh, okay, they got it. They no biggie. And they'll just pick up right. They'll be with you. They'll follow you right to the next slide, and everything will be fine. I was told for that first one, I was told by the AV person. His name was Matt Masterson, a great guy. He had been around forever. He had seen many of these presentations over the years. for that awful presentation that was the worst he had ever seen, ever. The worst. With his Scottish accent. That was great. Great. Just perfect. I tried open mic comedy about 8 years ago here in Vegas. So obviously that was many years after my disastrous clinic presentation. I have spoken in public since, but I had always spoken about like a technical thing or something like work related. I wasn't really good about getting up in front of people and doing any sort of performative presentation. So, and this comes in handy as I will touch on later. So I tried open mic comedy about 8 years ago here in Vegas. A friend of mine that I had met sometime earlier in downtown, he's a Caltech graduate, mathematics. He said, I'm thinking about hosting an open mic. I'm going to try to get into comedy because who wants to do math all the time? He was doing JavaScript prototyping for startups, MVPs, minimally viable products. Yeah, all of this sounds like a blast, right? So he said, yeah, I'm going to do open mic night. You know, come by sometime. You can get up there and see what happens. So it was at a place called The Dive, which is near the UNLV campus. It is indeed a dive. It was almost completely comics in the audience of varying levels of experience. So like Jerry Seinfeld and Dave Chappelle were not walking in there. But these are people that do open mics or they're getting up on stage and performing for money. And so these are professional or amateur comics. They're not typically open micers. So people that only do open mic, like I've only done open mic, you're just open mic. But if you're an actual comedian, if you're an actual comic, stand-up comic, by the way, there's a difference, comic versus comedian. So if you're a stand-up comic and you're getting up on stage and getting money for it and you're touring, then you go to open mics to try new material and you want to get your time. So you want to try your material and hear what other comedians think and get their feedback and so on. And then maybe you try it out an open mic with a normal civilian audience, and that's possible as well. But it's almost completely comics at the Dive at the time when he first got this started. The patrons at the bar who did not necessarily know they were attending an open mic comedy show, so they didn't really care. In fact, they may talk over you, make other noises. Just training for your real experiences. Distraction is a part of life. I had 5 minutes, which is a really long time, like sometimes too long. It was truly awful both times. So I give them a tie. So the 2 times that I did actual open mic comedy attempts at the Dive, both horrible. The first time I had prepared material that I was extremely nervous about for no good reason. I had everything written on a note card. I was reviewing it. I had an alcoholic beverage to try to calm down, which it turns out is not really necessary. Probably even a bad idea if you're trying to learn. So you shouldn't drink to calm down in those circumstances, my opinion. So I had prepared material, and the second time I did a little bit more improv. I tried to riff off of the previous material that other people had done. So kind of callbacks, just as an experiment. And by the way, it turns out that that's what open mics are for. If you're going to get up in front of people and for 5 minutes, the whole entire purpose is to try out new ideas, try out a new piece of music, a new poem, a new oratory of some sort, whatever it is, you make the most of it. But at the time, I was not really in that mindset. So neither of my performances was anywhere near good, much less funny. Turns out, though, even though it was a tough room, it was a tough crowd, as the saying, as the label goes, a very tough crowd. But afterwards, after everybody's done and everybody's telling their war stories, like, remember when I was telling that joke 14 minutes ago? Like, was that you? I actually got some positive feedback. Oh, your timing is not so bad, and your opener was pretty good. Then the rest of it didn't really fit together. So I was actually getting useful feedback from people. And so even though it's a tough room during, everybody was very helpful. And so it didn't feel like get out of here, you were horrible. It was more like, yeah, you can use some practice, but here are some of the good parts. And so it was actually self-affirming, I suppose, and also affirming from others. So this unusual peer group that had sort of an ad hoc peer group, I guess, giving useful feedback. Like, oh, okay, that was better than I thought it would be. A close runner-up, by the way, in the in the open mic space, it was my most recent open mic performance at Wise Guys here in Vegas. That's an actual comedy club, a freestanding comedy club, in fact. It was the third in a 3-week run. I had a really good stand-up open mic experience the first week. The second week was okay, and I know why it was only okay, because I didn't prepare as much material, and I tried to kind of improvise on stage. And it turns out that requires much more practice. And the third time, I was the 47th person to go on stage. And here at Wise Guys, you get 3 minutes. So 47th, that's still a long time. 47 times 3 minutes, plus another minute between for people to get up off stage, back on stage, etc. So 47, that's getting late. And people are sick, tired. They've already left. I had forgotten most of my material. I was literally just almost falling asleep, like bored out of my mind. And then once you're there thinking about it, you're like, oh, what if I moved that one joke around? And so in my head, I had forgotten some of my material. I was trying to move it around. I was trying out some new ideas, which is a bad idea. I tried interacting with the crowd a bit, and that was indeed, it was indeed a close third in this list. Technically fourth, since there was that tie, but you know what I mean. So the third experience of three in the recent times, 2 awful experiences 8 years ago, 1 awful experience more recently, but I had good experiences. So the take home for that for me is that if I prepare and I think about what I want to say, it is possible. I did in fact have a couple of ad hoc or improv lines, but they were quips. They were literally like, I said, I have a Ouija board, so I'll know next time. Like I just made that up at the time, and out of context, it doesn't sound like something entertaining, but in the moment, in the context of the other humorous thing I had just said, it fit in, it worked. So that is a matter of practice. And that is what open mics are for, if you're interested in that sort of thing. But also, if you're interested in being comfortable speaking to people, then an open mic of any kind, whether it's music or comedy or storytelling or anything like that, is an opportunity for you to get up in front of people and practice that interaction. And that is where you may explore the secret. So for my own uses, and I suspect others have found some variations on this, or maybe something entirely different. But for me, I've established my strategy for performing in front of an audience, public speaking as one form of this, but it could be anything. With my clinic project and the presentation, I had something like imposter syndrome that first time, so that I thought everybody in the room was smarter or better or whatever. What am I doing up here making this presentation, and so on. At some point, I realized, certainly before my successful presentations in the future, in my future back then, so somewhere between that awful presentation and then the good one, I started to realize that I actually did know what I was talking about, even if barely, and that the people in the room were there to learn from me. They were here to listen to what I had to say. Some might be there to judge. They might come up with a question or something. Eventually, as we all get better or more knowledgeable, we find that judgment might lead to questions from the audience, which either makes us learn for next time, like, oh, that's a good question, I really didn't think about that, or, oh yes, I did have an error in that slide. We can re-examine what we presented, or perhaps we answer the question, we defend our knowledge successfully, our work is validated, and the audience says, oh yeah, okay, yeah, maybe they do know what they're talking about. So interacting with your peers, or your peers is good, with your audience, even if they're not your peers, can add to your overall experience. You'll either learn something yourself, or the audience will learn something if there are questions, or if there's even if something goes wrong, even if your slides are out of order or whatever you're doing, the audience will learn, oh, you handled that really well. That almost always like relaxes the audience a little bit when like there's a little moment of tension. Oh, that slide's in the wrong place. What's going to happen? Oh my God. Oh, okay. Oh, that was funny. And then there's a little, shoulders drop. Everybody's having a good time. Oh, okay. Now everything's fine. The moment of suspense has passed. When it comes to pure performance, like comedy or music or whatever you might be up to with a crowd or an audience of some sort, unless we are some elite performer charging big money for tickets to take in our work, I'm not Taylor Swift, certainly. The audience is 99% forgiving of most things that could go wrong. Worst case, if I try another open mic and I bomb, people are not booing. By the way, even that really awful night, it was the end of the night. The whole room was filled with the stand-up comics. There was no, the audience was basically done. So everybody in the room is kind of laughing, kind of like, what is that? What are you talking about? But no one was like, get off the stage, And then afterwards, I got some feedback from people. So yeah, worst case, they're just going to be like, what is this? Nobody's booing. Nobody's throwing vegetables. Pretty calm. They may not be laughing, but when you think about it, there are times when you say something you find funny in your peer group, and maybe they don't agree. Your reaction to their reaction to the bad joke is an opportunity to save it. And this happens to the best of them. Did you ever see a joke fall flat when it was told by Johnny Carson on The Tonight Show? He usually would have this thing. He would look a little sheepish, and he would say, you see what that means or what that joke was trying to say. And so he would try to recover. And just the way he attempted to recover, to explain the joke, here's why that was funny, that got a laugh. And once again, the whole crowd's like, oh, okay. And they're back in, right? They're back on board. So knowing how to do that, guess how you get to be good at that? You bomb a couple times. You have jokes that don't work. And when you're in your peer group and you say something funny, but it's a groan, oh, that wasn't funny. You're like, yeah, but next time or the other time, you come up with a quip and you save it, so to speak. No one hates you. For the most part, you're not going to, unless you say something like offensive. But for the most part, okay, you're back in. Nobody's sending you home. Nobody's getting the hook out to pull you off the stage. So a bad joke is an opportunity to save it. Like I said, if you bomb, but you can recover, another learning experience. Just like in that presentation where you didn't really know the answer, or where somebody pointed out you had an error on your presentation or your slides or whatever. Oh, okay, yeah, I'll have to go back and fix that. Okay, so now you become a better presenter for next time. It happens more often than we know, so roll with it. Roll with the jokes that didn't land, with the musical instrument that is suddenly out of tune, with the poetry slam that doesn't work, or whatever it is. Most of the audience couldn't do what you're doing in front of them. They might have the same fears that you don't have anymore. So have fun with that. Really, when you think about it, it's a variation on the imagine your audience is naked. That one's really old and tired. So don't go with that. But do remember that they're there to see you. But you know more. I know all of the material I'm about to say to you, or maybe I don't. But I am here ready to go, and you're here ready to listen. So let's put this even if everything fails, if you get up on a stage and you're like, I absolutely do not remember what I was going to say. Try to make that funny. You ever get up on stage and you completely forget what you're going to say? Even if you just say that. And by the way, oftentimes if you do attend a real comedy show, like a professional comedian or comic who's touring, who's getting paid for their work, those people will even say, this is a new joke. Or they'll tell a joke, and if it isn't really funny, they'll just say, that was a new joke. You can always say that. You can always say that at any time. That was a new slide. I'm trying out some new material today. Sorry, you you have to suffer through this. Turn everything into a moment that will relax your audience. So once I was, once I was comfortable talking about things about which I felt confident and knowledgeable, or even things I was not completely confident and knowledgeable about, it became easier and easier to engage in public speaking about these things or about other things. Who knows? Once I realized that the audience was mostly there to listen, maybe interact, but only rarely are people there to go negative. Now, I have been in a situation where people showed up to a presentation and they were there to literally throw a wrench in. And after that happens the first time or second time, by the third time, you are ready. So I'll just leave that there. But you see somebody coming in with a tomato in their pocket. You're like, I know you're going to throw that tomato at me. Why don't you just throw it right now? Let's see what happens. It became easier and easier, though, to engage in the public speaking, and I realized the audience was mostly there to listen. So that's good. That's why we do these things, right? If you find yourself in a situation where people might escalate into bad places, maybe they'll rush the stage or come at you in some way physically. Maybe they'll threaten you or something. First of all, what are you talking about? What are you telling these people? But that's the time to be concerned. That's, you got these internet characters that go to a university and they got protests and people are yelling and throwing things and security and people getting hauled out, arrested. That may not be the same sort of thing that I'm talking about today, but there may be a time to be concerned if your audience is riled up a little bit. This could happen depending on where you are trying out your open mic or your public speaking in a setting like the Dive, which is a bar where people are not necessarily there to hear you. They may not be in on your jokes. So you got to be ready for that. But mostly people are not there to engage in battle. They're there to hear what you have to say, or they're here to watch or listen, or maybe they're just doing their thing and they're not even here to be a part of what you're doing. So it's mostly calm. If they don't laugh, fine. If people do boo, I never see that anymore, but it could happen, I guess. So, but people are mostly there just to be there, and mostly. After I tried out those open mic experiences at the Dive so many years ago, it became very clear that public speaking in any form is a matter of realizing that you are the public speaker. And as the public speaker, you know more than your audience, even if you don't. You have the floor, you have the mic, even if you don't have an actual microphone, but people are listening to you. They are looking at you, they're listening. You are there to speak. You're there to tell them what to do, where to go, etc. And around this time, I was traveling to hackathons, and so I was traveling quite a bit, out and about, talking to groups of people that I had never met before, and I had been awake for 30 hours or whatever. So they just, you got to get up in front of people. Okay, here's what's coming up next, and here's what we got to do, and if anybody needs something. So yeah, you have to be comfortable in general. It's a life skill, and when you are doing that. Or when I was doing it, like, I know what I'm trying to tell people. So there's really no reason to be nervous about that. I know, and you do not. And I'm here to share that information with you. And that's almost always true when you're making a presentation. Clearly, there are cases when it's not. But if you're presenting something to a group of people, if you're in a public speaking scenario, almost always you're there to tell them something they probably don't already know, or to reaffirm something that they probably know. I have taught briefly in classroom settings. Every student in the room is there to listen to what you have to say. So that's probably mostly true most of the time, if I can leave you with as much uncertainty as possible regarding that. Even if you don't have a mic, you still have the floor. So they may actually know more, but while you do have that floor, you know more. You are there to speak. You're there to present. You are there to lead, if you like. You know more. You know more about your comedic material. You know how your musical instrument works. You know your lines of your performance. Whatever the case may be the expert. Once public speaking becomes second nature, you will find it easier to tell your story or describe a problem and a solution. Hey, I wrote describe a problem. Now describe a problem. Problem and solution. If you ever find yourself pitching a startup idea, presenting at a city council meeting, trying to organize people for an activity or a cause, whatever you are hoping to accomplish, it will be that much easier if you are able to tell people around you what you are trying to accomplish and maybe what you need them to do to get there. Maybe, and why they would want to do that. Why be a part of this effort? If you can tell a good story, if people are interested, and the take home really is this: if you can convince people in your audience to come with you on this journey, whether it's watching a slide presentation or a video that you're speaking about, maybe you're doing a TED talk, maybe you're pitching a startup and you want to get investors on board, whatever it is, if you can get people to follow along, and if they fall off, if you make an error, I've seen this countless times. I can't see what is your slide? Your slide is too busy, or it has the too low contrast. People in the back of the room can't read because it's like blue on black or something. Like, who tried these out? Take that feedback. So, but people don't usually say that. They'll just sit in the back and go, I can't read those slides, and you lose them. So if you can keep people with you on your journey, whether it's telling jokes or playing music or making a pitch for your startup idea or whatever it is, you will do better if you can tell a good story. And if you keep people engaged, and if you can roll with any mistakes. Oh, I can't see this slide. I'm sorry. I prepared this in a very bright room. whatever, make it work, and then try to fix it on stage. If you are so confident in your material and your ability to tell that story, then when something happens, and so I had if I can extend this ending, because we're at the end, if I can extend this out a little bit, I created this thing called a pitch workout room based on the open mic technology. I have an idea. I have a couple of slides. Okay, you want to get up in front of people and speak for 5 minutes? So you get in front of your peer group, other people that are interested in starting a company or have an idea, but they haven't started anything yet. I'm going to tell you my idea, and you tell me if my presentation is confusing. Tell me if my idea is interesting. You get 5 minutes to start. And when we were doing that, there were people that actually did start companies, and it actually turned into something. So you got to get up off the couch. Your idea is not going to go anywhere if you're sitting on a couch. But when you get up in front of people and you start talking, they will tell you things like, "Oh, that slide is too dark," or "It's confusing if you put the third slide first and the second slide third." So reorder them, or whatever the case may be. If you can actually work out your slides, if you get practice, you become a confident speaker in what you're talking about, and you know that what you're talking about has been tested, and you've iterated on it, and you've been able to turn it into a better presentation. So practice, practice, practice. That's what open mics are for. That's what pitch workout rooms, or anything similar to that. Anytime you can tell your story, tell your jokes. And I found this to be true in general when comics are trying to get open mic time. They will literally find, tonight there's an open mic at midnight. There's one at 10, so I can make the one at 10, then I'll go to the one at midnight, then there's another one at 2 in the morning. Anytime you can get in front of people and practice. So the more often you do that, the more often you have opportunities to improve and get over any stage fright, performance anxiety, or public speaking fears. Get that glossophobia out. And that's where I'm going to leave it for today. Thank you for listening, as always. That's all I have to say, really. Be the expert in the room when you have the floor. That's really the take home. Oh man, I just saw some news. Tulsi Gabbard is confirmed as the director of national intelligence. The world has ended. If you watch those Senate presentations, you see them giving pat answers, tested answers that are compliant with, anyway. So being able to answer questions confidently, to be able to present your ideas confidently and all that, it's just practice. You got to practice. That is where we'll leave it for today. Thank you so much for listening. As always, do check out Buy Me an Update, published every Monday, exclusively on buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo. You don't need to spend any money, all free. Any monies that do come in, though, go towards coffee. That's it. Bye-bye.